Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Marilyn Hamilton, and it's my honor today to host a session on World Unity Week on midwifing Nottingham Compassionate City from the Integral City Embryo. We have a whole midwifing team here with us, and if I could just ask Kara to pin the people as I introduce them, then we'll get started. So first of all, I'd like to introduce our lead midwife, Sue Cooper, who is the co-founder of MOMM, Moments of Mass Mindfulness. And then I would like to introduce Ole Kjoerrford, who's in Denmark, and he is behind Purpose. Purpose Catalyst is his work, his calling. And our next member of the midwife team is Peter Anderson. Peter Anderson is the founder of VocalEyes, community participation network, and he is going to be showing us how our embryo is growing. We have another member of our midwife team, Marilyn Turkovich, who is the executive director of the Charter for Compassion and Compassionate Cities. And we are trusting to the process that she will turn up before we get to her part of the program. So welcome to our session today, and we'd like to tell you this as a story, to tell you how we came together as a midwife team. Now, before we get started, because Sue has a wonderful gift of being able to give us an experience of moments of mindfulness, we're going to ask Sue to start our session with a moment of mindfulness. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, team, midwife team, for this opportunity to be with World Unity Week. So as we're getting started, let's bring ourselves into the present, and this is the essence of mindfulness, being here, right now. So may I guide you, and finding a place of comfort to start, and always remembering that comfort and well are the same words, well-being. So we're bringing ourselves into the moment, right here, right now. So if you should like to close your eyes or soften your gaze, whatever feels comfortable for you. And as we bring ourselves into the here and now, away from the activity of the world, let's anchor this in the breath. Simply noticing the breath entering and leaving the nose. However feels comfortable for you in this moment. Settling down the mind and moving our attention into the heart space, the seat of love, care and compassion. Maybe expand that area a little more by breathing a little deeper. Simply enjoying a few moments of peace. And with the attention on the heart, attention energizes, intention transforms. So the intention of this session today is the awareness of co-creating compassionate communities, individually and collectively, through many voices. So giving gratitude for this moment, for this circle, for this world, we gently open our eyes and greet each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And yeah, I feel like we really landed in a place where we can tell this story of our midwifing team. So, Kara, I would just like to ask you to share your screen. We'll just introduce a couple of ideas as I talk to Sue and get her to start with the story. So, in midwifing, compassionate city in Nottingham, one of the things that we started with our midwifing team was discovering who we were together. So if we can have the next slide, please, Kara. So one of the ways that we did this was sharing something that we use with Integral City. There's really a core intelligence. I call it the master code of care. And it means that we care for ourselves so we can care for each other, and together we care for our places, and all together we care for the planet. So caring for person, people, place, and planet, if you will. And this core understanding was also introduced to Sue, and we'll have the next slide, Kara, because I also invited Sue to participate in a course that we gave through Ubiquity University, Beyond Resilient. And we introduced there the idea that not only do we have people, place, and the planet, but we have 4 voices in the city. And I call them the citizens, the civic managers, the business innovators, and civil society. And what I've discovered is that these 4 voices are very important to having a whole system at the table. I actually learned these voices from the honeybees. And so this was information that I shared with Sue. So thank you for taking the share screen off, Kara, and let's just pin myself and Sue and we'll have a little conversation. So Sue, maybe you could just tell us how you came into weaving the 4 voices of the city and the master code of care into MOMM, and how this is starting to create what you called NG, energy in Nottingham. You were the energy I found there and I followed it. So tell us, how did it start for you, Sue?
It actually started through 45 years of nursing. So care and compassion has always been at the heart of what I do. And then I went through a process of unwell, and I needed to find healing, but I couldn't find anybody or anything really. I didn't really know what I was looking for. So over 12 years of traveling, looking at Indigenous cultures, it struck me that there was a missing link within care. And that was really caring for each other and becoming active participants in our own care. So I had a dream in 2016, which was a very strange event for me, I have to say, but I wrote it down, and it's become my calling, which is to co-create compassionate communities throughout the world and integrate holistic healing hubs within those compassionate communities. So how do we find each other when we're not in a place to really have the energy to really go and look? So we set up a movement through this dream, which was, well, if we have a lot of holistic practitioners in our city of Nottinghamshire, the county, then how do we find those people? Because they're hidden to us except through word of mouth. So we decided that at the heart of settling the nervous system and for greater immunity, mass meditation was the key to this. And through the Maharishi effect, it's been well documented when a group of people come together, there's an empowerment. So we set up a mass meditation event with the holistic practitioners present in marquees around the outside in 2017. And we moved as a city from competition to collaboration. And at that event, and that event grew year on year, and we were very fortunate enough for heart math to get involved. So the art and the science came together, the science of heart math and the coherence of the heart. And we providing the art of the people coming together and the experience of meditation. So at that event, the very first event, 2 people met each other. Claire and Jackie, who have set up an organisation, a CIC, called Positively Empowered Kids. And I was lucky enough to be asked to be an ambassador on the first day as they got started. So we've been looking at compassion within a city really starting with everybody, but ideally within the framework of the family, within the framework of the children and the youth voice in action. Because, and this is a personal belief, is that a lot of the systems that I know that I got caught in, the educational system, the health system, have the very best of intention at heart, but we're moving into a new world. So how do we become the voice of the city, the voice of the compassionate city? So when I met Marilyn, I said, Marilyn, and she told me about her master codes of care, which I secretly call mother codes of care, mom codes of care. It's so much at the heart of this. It's about each person having an opportunity to come together in their own place, to find people who work and provide services in their own place, and grow from a grassroots organisation. Through Perea, I met Ola, and I know each person is going to have an opportunity to speak, who was able to start looking a little more at a systems approach from the heart, and then met Peter and then Marilyn Turkovich. So between us, we each bring our own selves and we each have a practice. And of course, there's Peter Anderson as well with VocalEyes, very important for deep democracy. So we are in evolution, and where this is going is yet to be seen, but this conversation is part of it as we come together and share where we are at this moment and then maybe where we're going.
Thank you, Sue. That's beautiful. And it sort of weaves very nicely with the themes of the World Unity Week. And that was what I wanted to tell through this story, was that sometimes we just think we have to do the whole thing at the size of the globe or the world. But if we start locally and start with the energy, we can find a way to conceive of something that really can grow to be global. So I'd like now to invite Peter, I'd like to invite Ole into the conversation. And if we could have Ole and share the screen again, please, Kara, because I'd like to just use the screen as I talk to Ole and invite him to tell us about how purpose plays a role in the whole. So I'd like you to go to the fourth slide, please, Kara. I'm thinking I can control it on my screen, but I can't. It's yours. And there's a little delay here. And so as we're being delayed, I will also welcome Marilyn Turkovich into the midwife team because I saw her come into the room. Kara, I don't know if, yes, that's the one we want, the engagement of the four voices. And maybe you can put that on full screen so we can see the full thing. So Ole, when I met you, I was really impressed that you were what I've called a purpose catalyst, and that you were working with people to discover their purposes. And I think that's one of the ways that you encountered Sue Cooper. So tell us a little bit about how do you catalyze purpose in people and even in groups?
Well, I think we all have energy for evolution inside us, and I was deeply inspired by Barbara Marx Hubbard, who talked about awakening the new species in you, which was recognizing that I am not on Earth alone for myself. I am actually part of a total system, and the only way we can thrive together is to recognize this. So in shifting from being focused on me to recognizing that I'm part of the whole, the question is, what is then my role, my contribution to the whole? And we have discovered, Puria and I and others, that in small intimate groups, we can explore our life purpose and get support for our life purpose from each other. And this is something that's happening everywhere. And I think small intimate groups is at the essence of humanity's shift. And this is also appearing in this picture in front of us. Oops. Which
Yes,
disappeared.
Kara, are you able to put the slide back on again? Thank you very much.
Yeah, because we are moving from kind of a hierarchical structure where individuals are in power to, with the evolution and awakening, more and more people are waking up to a greater purpose, like Sue Cooper, for instance, in Nottingham, but also corporate leaders want to do something more than just make a profit, and they start to engage in community. And so we're shifting from business leaders, citizens, and the third sector, as you call it, Marilyn. They shift from being observers or lobbyists or passive participants to be active and join the community leadership with the different perspectives and geniuses to co-create what works for all. And I would like to echo what you said, Marilyn, that we are starting with humanity awakening. The first places where we can get critical mass and change the way we live together is in community. So I believe it all starts in small scale, in healthy small cells, and they become so attractive that they will attract more and more people into them.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Ole, because I think that one of the things that we discovered as I use the term third sector, other people say civil society, and who we're including in that are not-for-profits, NGOs, all the faith community. And I have discovered that they have a very important voice to play in our communities and in our cities. And when I was exploring how to introduce the idea of the four voices into our conversation with NG and how we were starting to grow the view of it, you said, well, it's like an embryo. Here, let me draw the four circles. And so Sue, who's a nurse, could recognize, oh, yes, definitely. That's how we get cell division. But then cells are also specialized, then they become the organs of a fully growing being. So if we could have the next slide, please, Carol. I'll speak to that and bridge from what Ole has introduced. And maybe if you could find the click that gives us the full screen, it'll just be a little easier to see. So when we think about the vision that's on the right side of my screen now, which is about co-creation, it brings the four voices of the city together. And we start to see, Kara, I'm not sure if we're just experiencing the delay or you didn't hear my request to move to the next slide, please. I gather that when we have more than one person doing this slide sharing, that there's a bit of a delay. So we'll just be patient, and I'll keep talking to the one that is on my screen, because what we have on the next screen is being able to see it as an embryo growing. So you'll see that we've got the four voices of the city. The engaged citizens are the ones in the upper left corner. The community governance are in the upper right. We have business leaders and innovators in the lower right, and the volunteers, the faith and the civil society organizations in the lower left. So what this enables us to do, and you'll notice in the very center is energy. That's what I thought that Sue discovered. She had nicknamed Nottingham because NG is their postal code, and NG seemed to be a lovely mnemonic for the whole perspective of energy in Nottingham. And that was what was at the essence, at the center of what Sue imagined for well-being hubs, caring communities, and being able to bring that whole beautiful caring experience of moments of mass mindfulness. So Kara, I don't know if you're there, and yes, can you, maybe I will share my screen, Kara, and we'll just allow that to be a little bit easier so that you don't have to keep paying attention to the requests. So here we go. Here's the screen that I want to share. There we go. So you can see that the embryo is the one that's at the top of the screen. So here we have the beginning embryo. And Sue already mentioned that one of the ways that we grew that, replicated it to begin with, is through the positively empowered kids, through the two wonderful organizers who invited Sue to be on the board. And what we helped them to see was, oh, you've got your own embryo here with your 4 voices of the city to serve you, and energy is at the center of you. Well, what's happened since we started working with them 6 months ago is that they've also replicated into at least 3 other 4 voice sets. One is with families, one is with children in the Gedling schools, a particular area of the school area in the Nottingham area, and then children in other schools. In addition, you can see over here that the original NG embryo has now spawned a health and well-being in Nottingham, and we'll see as we progress with the story that in fact it is now being connected and replicated in Manchester. So there we have the sort of picture of how a beginning embryo can start to replicate others, and that keeps growing, and the strength of them means that all around each one of these embryonic organs is another set of people that are representing the 4 voices of the citizens, the civic managers, the business innovators, and the third sector. So that brings me now to being wanting to stop this little set and inviting into the conversation Peter Anderson, who started VocalEyes and is creating a whole system of what I call developing the living systems, the organ systems within our embryos that they can grow. So Peter, please enter our conversation and tell us a little bit about how you've developed VocalEyes and given us the opportunity to have participation at a level I only dreamed of for communities and cities.
Thanks, Marilyn. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Nice to see you all here today. Yes, so a little bit of background. Well, firstly, my name is Peter Anderson. I'm based in Swansea in Wales, and I'm the founder of VocalEyes. The company is called VocalEyes Democracy, which is a community interest company, social enterprise. Really, this journey has been spawned really out of lots of different conferences that I was going to in 2007, 2008, where good friends of yours, Marilyn Vandana Shiva, Jonathan Porritt, these types of people were advocating that local democracy and community empowerment is the solution to, or a big part of the solution to local and global issues. And after I'd heard this over and over again, then it dawned on me that obviously this is the elephant in the room that we need to tackle. And I started searching for people who were trying to sort of fix that problem and couldn't find many people doing it. So that's really the journey that I set out on roughly 18 years ago. So it's been a long old journey, and we're still making progress, but it's a slow incline because it's such a big problem to solve. But essentially, that's what we're doing. We're building a digital platform with all the wraparound services for local democracy, so enabling a voice, a strong voice in communities, but also any type of organisation. Because this is the first base, so to speak. Most communities don't know what their priorities are, so they can't really then progress through to organising and getting stuff done. Our sort of highest level of aspiration is to try to enable coordinated action across similar communities, because most communities have similar priorities. If you ask a community what they want to do, they tend to want to do green space projects, for instance, growing projects, renewable energy projects, health and wellbeing projects. So our priorities are similar all across the world in communities. And the challenge, I think, for the next phase of humanity is really to go from fantastic case studies that we see on TED and all over the internet to scaling up those case studies to coordinated collective action and actually adapting and replicating those case studies en masse. So that's our highest level of aspiration. We've got a project that we've sort of titled Participatory Schools, Communities and Cities. Really, the participatory city element only comes from managing to make schools and communities participatory. And we've got a toolkit and services to enable that to happen. And as I was saying, the highest level aspiration is coordinated collective action across the city. So if I just give you a quick sort of hands-on demo of what that's all about. This is a 30-second video of how VocalEyes works, just to give you a quick summary.
VocalEyes, an innovative platform for community organising. Here's how. Create a group, start topics of conversation, promote to your community, encourage them to suggest, rate and debate ideas. This creates clear priorities. Organise regular meetings, set agendas from your priorities, form working groups, crowdsource projects, share the best projects so they can be discovered, adapted and replicated anywhere. Tap into the wisdom of your communities. Turn great ideas into action.
So that's it in 30 seconds. It's always quite hard to sum up something so complicated so succinctly, but there we are, we had a go at it. And in terms of outputs, because this is absolutely crucial, so what comes out of that process, it's a feedback loop. You know, people are suggesting ideas in communities, in schools, in organisations to improve those organisations, and they're prioritised, working groups are identified, and then those working groups create action plans and move them forward to fruition. And just a whole different range of things have materialised from that process, from walking buses in schools to sport and dance lessons, communities going plastic free, for instance, organisations taking on vegan options. So, you know, right from really small issues, but that are, you know, very important to people, to much larger issues like maybe starting community pavilions or community buildings, that sort of thing. So we had a contract with Cardiff Council that was really fascinating. A couple of years ago, they wanted to demonstrate a big voice, a big conversation, I should say, across the city. And they were going to use Post-it notes and paper tablecloths and SurveyMonkey, but we convinced them that there was a better way. And we essentially enabled local democracy and community organising for all of those schools. So this is the list of all of those 120 schools in Cardiff, and it's like a leaderboard of interactions. So you can see that there's about 40% engagement in this secondary school, and in some of these primary schools you've got 100% engagement, and that's because they've integrated it into English literacy and digital competency. So, you know, there's some fantastic case studies there. What we're trying to do now is obviously work with other councils and other areas to level up on that case study. The funding came to an end because of COVID at that point. Here's an example of a geographic ward. So local democracy, as we say, is the foundation of the platform, and wards are the foundation of democracy in the United Kingdom, as they are in many other countries. All the wards are already in the platform. You get joined to that when you register. This is an example that Swansea Council funded to basically gain a case study inside the geographic ward to demonstrate it for local democracy. And these are priorities inside the Pennard ward. So skate park being the top priority, almost 200 people engaged. And so people can rate it to identify what the priority is. They can comment on it to create a dialogue with comments, arguments for, neutral and against, but they can also opt in to the working group, and that in that way then you start to pull out capacity from the community to be able to progress things. Then with that working group you would then come together, say on Zoom or face to face, you would start to create an action plan and log actions on the platform and assign those to certain people. So it kind of moves from engagement through to crowdsourcing, through to project management. Pennard actually gained a really fascinating case study in that they were the first community in Wales to start doing participatory budgeting. So the process was actually really simple. We build the tools, we train community organisers how to use those tools, and they bring about this new culture that we want to see. And that really is the message for us going forward, is we need to co-create the digital tools and services that underpin the cooperative culture that we want to live in and want to see going forward. Obviously, so there's a lot to do there, but this is an example of new budgets, brand new budgets that they put up. They asked the community how they should be spent. The community suggested, rated and prioritised ideas. And then here you can see in a very open and transparent way how that money was spent in line with the evidence of need from the democratic engagement, building that community voice. So that's Pennard for you. We're also now starting to streamline the process and trying to inspire those conversations, because very often an empty group doesn't necessarily get inspired ideas. So we created a repository here of around 40 solutions for climate and nature recovery. So when in these conversations, people can click the button, I'd like to be inspired, and all of these ideas are there. And if they think that's relevant for their group or community, they can suggest that in and try to identify a working group and progress that. So it's really, I call this the sort of DNA, the DNA for a healthy planet. And these are the projects that we must organise around in the near future and must enable coordinate collective action across the world if we want to save ourselves, essentially. We all know we're facing the 6th mass extinction. I won't go too much into that, a little bit depressing, but that's the reality of things. And so we have to step up our ability to organise globally. So as you already mentioned, Positively Empowered Kids, they're a social enterprise in Nottingham. They're one of the organisations that's driving engagement across Nottingham, largely with young people, engaging schools and young people in geographic communities. And they've just come to an end of a project, their first project with Catalyst Primary School, where they had absolutely fantastic engagement. The entire school with year 4, 5 and 6 have engaged 200 pupils, over 6,000 interactions, 150 ideas or so, and the teachers embedding it into the curriculum. They're progressing ideas into action. They found local sponsors. So they've gained that really important case study, that first-hand experience. So they're in a position now where they can take that and work with the local city council to scale that up across Gedling and across the city and the borough. So that's essentially it in a nutshell. As you mentioned, Sue, it's youth voice in action, it's community voice in action, it's democratizing all types of organizations to bring about the culture that we want to see.
Thanks, Peter. Well, that's really exciting, because what it illustrates for me is that where we've got the idea of the embryos replicating and growing, you've actually showed how it starts to become possible to get people involved locally at every level. And you're also, I know, have very practical suggestions about how to scale this up from attracting the funding and budgeting to do this. And perhaps on another session, we'll be able to do that and explore that, because I think that's what people practically also need to know, that you've thought that through as well. And just for your information, just before we started this session, I was watching Vandana Shiva, who was on World Unity Week yesterday. And of course, she has a very, very powerful message about Earth democracy. But it's here that it starts. And maybe, Peter, I could ask you to stop sharing your screen so we could invite in our 5th mysterious member of our midwifing team, and that's the other Marilyn Turkovich. Marilyn Turkovich, welcome to the session on World Unity Week of Midwifing Nottingham as a Compassionate City from an Integral City Embryo. We've told the stories of how we started, and now we wanted you to tell us about compassionate cities. Could you tell us what are they, and how did you start them, and how might this link into Sue's vision for well-being hubs and compassionate communities?
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, because the world clock turned me around, because it was written down as 9 Pacific time. And so there's a little 3-hour difference between 9 and when we started. So my apologies. Let's maybe start real quickly from the beginning. The concept of the Charter for Compassion came from the British theologian Karen Armstrong. And she was asked by the TED organization, the TED Talks as we know them now, as the first awardee of TED, to give a talk. And her talk was on compassion. And she thought that compassion, and many of us do, believe that compassion is what we have left in order to hear each other's voices, to work cooperatively with one another, and to really practice the golden rule. Because in truth, although the whole concept of creating the Charter for Compassion was open to the world by TED, they put it on the internet. They got 185,000 replies of what people thought compassion was. And then it was honed down into a document. And the document, as I said, is very, very cleverly done in a way that helps us understand that we are all a part of this world in which we live, and that we all have responsibility to one another, that there's a need for transparency between all ages and between all groups. And so that was the beginning of the Charter 11 years ago. It took a while before it got into total operation. And one of the first things it did was to look at cities. And the idea, and I'm going to share my screen and just take you to the website, our website, and hopefully you'll be able to see that.
It's coming on.
Okay, there we go. And you can see a quote here. Karen Armstrong, very early in the beginning of the Charter, was asked, what's a compassionate city? And she said, it's an uncomfortable city. And it's a city that's uncomfortable when anyone is homeless or hungry, uncomfortable if every child isn't loved and given rich opportunities to grow and thrive, and uncomfortable when as a community, we don't treat our neighbors as we wish to be treated. So that was the beginning. And there were groups of people who started in discussion around what constitutes a compassionate city. And, you know, through the years, we have found that this conversation about what makes our city uncomfortable is started by all different kinds of groups. It might be started by an interfaith group in Pomona, California, who decides that things aren't civil in our society, in our community, in our city council. And so that was the beginning of the conversation and drawing all kinds of people in. And actually, in a way, almost rewriting a part of the Charter for Compassion with City Council and asking them to consider what is civility when we act collaboratively together. There's a lot going on besides that in Pomona, and that's what happens with, I believe, bringing compassionate cities together. People come, they begin to have a conversation, and that conversation starts by saying, you know, what are these things that are of just utter concern to us? In Bend, Oregon, it might be that youth drop off the scale, become homeless, and live in parks. It might be a group of medical personnel who are in Botswana who see that there's unequal treatment between patients who come in or are seeking help. In Karachi, it might be dealing with issues of unsafe water, of looking at education to really help students understand the options that they have in front of them, or it might be women's empowerment. I could go on because in each of our compassionate cities, the dialogue brings people into issue-based concerns. So that as we look at what Sue is doing in Nottingham, is what people are doing in other areas in the world. And so it starts, and then all of a sudden groups form, conversations begin, and as Peter's indicating, there's partnerships that come and get involved in the network, and people begin to rely on one another, but each of them might be taking on a different aspect. And in fact, right now around the world, we have, I think, 23 issues that our various compassionate cities are involved in, from human trafficking to homelessness to in Pune, India, in helping farmers look at agricultural and organic farming, to a place like Fayetteville, Arkansas, where they're taking responsibility and working with other groups in the city to resettle refugees. I'm just going to scale down here real quickly. I should point out that one of the things that we do in the Charter for Compassion, and I'm going to share with you a wheel that's really based very much on what Ole has said about Barbara Marx Hubbard. And we kind of developed our wheel as we went along and found ourselves working in different sectors within a city. And I'll show you that in a minute. But the other thing I wanted to share is that what we are also doing throughout the Charter is looking at the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And so for each one of what we call our sectors, cities, businesses, education, we've taken the Sustainable Development Goals and put them into a working model for each of our sectors. And then we do have a toolbox that we use in conjunction. We created it, we took advantage of what the TED organization did, and we put it online. And we asked all of our compassionate cities, and over a period of about 9-10 months, they indicated, and through Google Docs, all of the concerns that they had, the kinds of things that they thought they needed. And we worked with University of Kansas Community Toolbox and meshed what they had with what we needed and created our own toolbox. And here are 10 steps that we follow. Very much, again, going back to what Sue is doing and others in some of the other cities in England that we've been introduced to via Marilyn Hamilton and Ole. And the first is bringing that group together and saying, what do we want to do here? We have some activities around that to help really energize the conversation. And then we say, what's good that's going on in your particular community? And let's learn from the good things that are occurring. And how can we interact with those individuals or those organizations? The other thing is to, in step 3 here, is to invite other people to join in the conversation. So often we find that, we are very much coming at something from the same perspective. And so it's like, who's missing from the table? And let's make certain that they're invited into the dialogue. And so you can see that, each one of these steps are developmental. They're relatively simple, but they take a good amount of commitment and time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I've learned that in order to show you something else, I have to stop and then start again. So here is the wheel that I talked about. And so at the core is the Charter for Compassion, or just compassion. And that this is, the utmost thing that happens and radiates from the middle to all of our 12 sectors, so that we look at some of the programming that we do, and then we go on to our partners, and each of these different colors are our sectors. And so as we look at this right now with our communities and cities, we have a little over 450. Some of that is loose only because we not only have neighborhoods and cities, we have townships and counties, we have countries. And in fact, this year, September 21st, the International Day of Peace, Australia will be the first continent of compassion as the Parliament takes on looking at the Charter for the second time, I might say. But the first time was just very much a ornamental, let's make Australia a compassionate community. But a number of years later, now there is a team, a grassroots team, and that happens in all of our communities. A group of citizens who are willing to say, we are here to take responsibility, and then moving in collaboration with the local government entity and deciding what is the path to working together. So that if you look at some of our sectors, restorative and social justice, social services, gender relations, science and research, our religion, interfaith spirituality for the earth, arts and media, business, education, environment, peace, health, and we're back here to communities. The one thing that we have here, as you can see, is partners. And we have right now 2,700 partners from all of these different sectors. So, what we're trying to do is to really integrate the sectors, working with one another, understanding how each of these sectors might have an issue, but they can find that there are partners and that there are really avenues to explore with each of the other sectors. One of the things that the Charter does do, and I'll stop sharing my screen so we can see one another, is that we spend a lot of time with education. We're not reinventing education, but we're finding programs around the world that are really significant in bringing about social emotional learning for young people. And we're also very concerned about compassion in business, for example, or in health. And so we have something called compassion integrity training. It's not our program. It's a program that was initially started with the help of the Dalai Lama. And it started at Emory University. It's now housed at Life University. And compassion integrity training has become probably the most important program that we offer to our cities and to our schools. By the way, we have a compassionate school charter of about 3,000 schools around the world that take that charter quite seriously and are working with young children and all the way through K through 12. We have two other programs that I think are very significant. One is something called Think Equal. It's based in London, and it is a program that is specifically for children who are 0 to 3. And it's an incredible program where students and parents and teachers really begin to understand kindness and compassion. And it is a really rich program that works for at least 3 years. And then the next program that we are working with is Sea Learning. Again, much research has gone into Sea Learning, and with the help of the Dalai Lama and the Dalai Lama Foundation, that program was launched in 2019. Because of the pandemic, it has had its ups and downs, but nonetheless, we have been able to introduce it to a number of schools. In Mexico, we started with 80 schools with Think Equal. We now have 300 schools in Mexico. In Australia, we did the same thing, introducing Think Equal to a small set of schools around the Melbourne area. They were so successful that now the government of Australia is looking into seeing how Think Equal can be offered to all children, 0 to 3. So our big concern is really to say, that compassion is essential. Compassion is transformational, and compassion is needed at all levels, at age levels in all areas of the world. And the thing I think that's really important is the local factor. I'm a student of Paulo Freire from Brazil, and if people know his work, what they know is that you come together in dialogue, you begin the conversation, not only for some places, we're lucky, we can say what bothers us, what makes us uncomfortable. In other areas of the world, we find ourselves saying, what's oppressing us? And so it's coming to a consciousness, and it's a collective consciousness. And I think that, uniquely, the Charter is trying to learn as we ask questions of one another and provide resources for one another.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Yeah, I was going to say Nottingham is there.
It is. And I was going to say this is a beautiful segue. I love Paulo Freire. What I always remember from that is you make the world by walking on it. So that I think is maybe a good segue back to Sue. I wanted to bring her back into the conversation because she has already moved the energy from Nottingham to Manchester. And there's a very special story there about the beginning of the Wellbeing hubs. And maybe, Sue, you can tell us that story and link it back to your aspirations for both Nottingham and Manchester to become connected to compassionate cities.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And where we are so far and our discussions so far have been very heart-opening. Knowing that so much is going on around the world is phenomenal. So thank you. I'm not sure if I'm on screen.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm not able to see myself. Here we are. So when we were going through 2017, we had our mass meditation in Nottingham, and that was obviously held by local people, all volunteers. And this all links up. 2018, we didn't have the energy because a lot of them, the holistic practitioners, were so busy within their work because people had found their way to them, that another group came in who I mentored, and Jackie and Claire were part of that group, and positively empowered kids. And I was invited to go down to Bristol and mentor them so that we could meditate together at the same time outside. And that happened in 2018. We came to the attention of Heart Math 2019, and we grew to such an extent that it became very much a global movement. We had our heart in Nottingham still, so on the Saturday in May again, 2019, Heart Math came up to Nottingham. We had about 300 people in a room plus everybody out on the internet, and we did a mass meditation with the intention of gathering the energy within the Nottinghamshire area. And then the next day we went to Manchester, because in Manchester is a monastery, and it's a monastery that was built by the Franciscans, and it fell into disrepair about 20 years ago when the monks left, 25 years ago. And it was bought after a lot of discussion, it was being vandalized and it was going to be turned into flats. But it was such a beautiful site in a very industrial area. This lady who drove past it every day, Elaine Griffiths, said, I need to buy this. She had the calling, I need to do something with this. So after a lot of hoop jumping, she bought it for £1. And then she had to find £13 million to get the roof repaired immediately. So they set up a trust. And over the last 25 years, this monastery, which it has got no religious connotations to it, it's open for everybody, has found its way that every artifact that was being taken or vandalized has found its way back into the monastery. And it's at this stage now, including the nights that were taken, the history of it is so phenomenal, which I can put a link to this. Anyway, the history is so rich and dense, not only for the positioning of it, but within the cosmology, because they've been looking at energy lines throughout the world, through their energy school, their earth school. And where the monastery sits within the world is within the energy field on a very significant portal, and it links the whole of the UK around and then around the whole world, and it links it the other way as well to Pennsylvania Avenue through to the Rock of Jerusalem. So within an energetic term, it's a beautiful site. It's been brought back with such love and compassion and devotion. And it started off for funding purposes and as it found its way as a convention centre, as a wedding venue. And it was being used by the local community and wider field. The Queen's visited, a lot of the royal family. Terry Waite, who was one of the hostages, is the patron. So it's got some very, very big voices and great heart to it. So we were invited through a mutual friend to run the first mass meditation with Heart Math, the global Heart Math meditation in May 2019 from there. So we felt that we activated ourselves. We activated each other because we came together in community. The place was set, and so many from all the UK and America actually traveled to that place with the expressed desire to come together through meditation, through music, through movement, through therapeutic work. And we have a labyrinth there like Chart. So people were moving around and amplify at a given time, which was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, amplify from that space of harmony and compassion through the portals into the non-local field, and for have it returned to us. We had 52 countries and about over 20,000 people that we know of, because Heart Math were trialing their app. So we knew what was happening. We had the world map up there, and it was so beautiful and so significant. And from that day, the monastery, we're obviously great friends. I go there regularly, but of course COVID happened. And the plan was that we would open to more health and wellbeing events. So during the COVID period, they've had a look at exactly what the monastery is here to do. And the monastery is here to be a healing centre. It's here to be the centre of the evolution of holistic health and well-being. And it's also being supported in a small way by the health authority, because they're very interested to see what people can do when they come to a space that is held in love and compassion. And within that are the healing community. So they're looking at listening circles, there are dialogue circles, meditation will take place, there's an energy school, there's yoga, there's therapeutic sessions. And then there's the ecological awareness of herbs and plants and etc. that they grow there. So looking at the geometrics as well. They've asked if MOMM would be hosted there every month. So MOMM is an idea. There's no structure with it, but to come to the monastery, people from Nottingham and people from Manchester and people from Leeds who've been involved, and people from different parts. I have talking to a lady from Edinburgh yesterday who's got significant connections through the nursing field in Manchester. She says they will come. So it's kind of let them know and they will come. But what's exciting is the monastery on every Friday and Saturday will continue to be a wedding venue, bringing more love and union in. But for the rest of the week, they'll hold a silent meditation every day between 12 and 1. And then there'll be all these therapeutics going on throughout the week. But on that first Sunday of every month, and the first one's the 1st of August, the MOMM initiative will be anchored there. And the MOMM initiative is to be one of the many catalysts for human and global transformation, for the raising of human and global consciousness. And if the aim is to have more and more people throughout the world meditating at the same time, and let's see what happens. The intention is honourable and the intention is heart-centred.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, it builds on such a beautiful picture of what Marilyn created in the many ways that she shared with us, that people come to Compassionate Cities because there may be a real need that's terrible and even disastrous. And what we were thinking about the other day was how beautifully Nottingham and now Manchester seem to be coming online in almost like a preventive way. So I'd just like to invite the rest of our midwifing team to open their mics, and let's have an open conversation around what the roles are that we've been playing, and that even now that we've heard the story, again, that we have any insights into what role we each are playing. It may be what you see about yourself, or it may be that you see that somebody else is doing something you just hadn't realized or appreciated. So maybe Ole, I could ask you to start. I see you you've unmuted yourself, and you've listened you've listened to, I think all of us come from a very deep place of passion and purpose. What does this, when you hear this, how do you relate this back to what's happening in Nottingham?
I see that there's such a transformation going on in the world where millions of people are recognizing that what we're doing is not working, and they are waking up to contributing to a new way of being together. And I think Nottingham is a beautiful example of how heart-centered people start to co-create new ways of supporting their community. And I think that this is just one of thousands of examples actually around the world. And hopefully we can develop some, or come to some insights that we can share with other communities. There are 400 communities in the Charter for Compassion, and of course that is only a fractal of the whole world. So I see that this is just what is going to shift the world, starting in community, connecting communities, and eventually connecting us all.
Beautiful. And Peter, I wonder if I could invite you to make some comments about other members of the midwife team that aren't here. Like you've mentioned the people who funded the PEC initiative, which came from the Community Foundation. And you've been working with other people, even from outside the community, like Josh from Leeds. So any comments about how they're contributing as midwives into this initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our skills sort of divide out maybe into 3 different circles, overlapping circles. You've got systems thinking, you've got the head, the strategy, and you've got the heart. And I think that one of the unique aspects of our team is that we seem to have, we're pretty strong in all those areas, and we've got a sort of a collaboration from all of those areas. Personally, I'm really focused on the systems side of things, because I see that as being a big barrier. You know, when we talk about democracy, for instance, if the local council was to engage in democracy or democratic process for citizens, they would literally be using SurveyMonkey. It's death by a 40-page survey monkey. We've all done it. And that's the best that they can come up with, really. And using post-it notes, paper tablecloths, big sheets of paper. These sort of processes just are not going to serve us going forward. We have to really come together to co-create an advanced technological platform that are tools essentially that will bring about the culture that we want to see. And if we don't develop those tools, then we're not going to see a new culture. And it's a big ask because the interaction is more complicated than Facebook. It's more complicated than social media. If you think of the interaction on Facebook, for instance, or social media, it's just simple posts and likes, comments. Whereas we're talking about local democracy and organizing. So you've got people's ideas, you've got opinions, you've got priorities, you've got working groups, you've got action plans, and then you've got the capability to try to adapt and replicate those projects en masse. So it's complicated, and it's going to take a lot of people to come together, behind the same vision to make this happen. But it's not impossible, right? And that's really what we're championing here in Nottingham, is that these sorts of collaborations are possible. And as Ollie pointed out, the embryo is there, it's formed, and it can be formed anywhere. And the compassionate communities, for instance, could be fantastic catalysts all across the world to bring together consortiums that are focused on this mission.
Yeah, and you're using the word complicated maybe too many times, because one of the things that impressed me was that Claire and Jackie from Positively Empowered Kids actually learned the system fairly quickly, and I think they even taught Sue. Isn't that correct, Sue?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's our job, is to make complicated things simple.
Yeah, good. There, I wanted you to get that point across, because I think that is one of the things when I was working with your system. I was bemoaning something that I like to work with in communities, is to have the local media. It used to be, hard copy newspapers, and I said, oh, we don't have those anymore. And then you pulled out a lovely page from VocalEyes that showed, yes, you do. You have ways for people to create their news system, local news, and even regain opportunities for advertising locally, which seemed like an awfully powerful idea to me.
Yeah, well, the local is the final frontier in a sense. We haven't cracked it yet. And local news and positive local news is going to be a big part of that infrastructure. It's how people will be inspired by things that they can do. They'll be inspired by things people are doing, and then they'll have the information in this new publication, the community voice, the youth voice, about what their priorities are. It's absolutely illuminating when you walk around to local councillors and go, this is what the priorities of the local residents are. Most councillors, for instance, as an example, just have 2 or 3 priorities, but obviously priorities are evolving all the time, and it needs to be an ongoing conversation. So that infrastructure is being built, but like I say, we need to come together and build it together. It's a big project.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Marilyn, did you have any observations that you're listening to the local story that come to you as maybe being a next step that they might think about taking as a compassionate community? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yes. I think there's nothing like having a community come together in celebration. I've seen it over and over again in different countries where it's almost as if it's, certainly it's an opportunity for people to come and show what they're working on, sharing food together, but getting to know one another. It's almost sometimes I think about the whole compassion movement, similar to you having an obligation to go to a party. And when you learn about it, it's like, oh, that's great. And then when the time comes, you're like, why am I doing this? But then when you go, you find out that there's some wonderful things that can happen. And I believe that, that's happening, obviously, in Nottingham, in Manchester. And it happens whenever people come together. I'm just remembered that in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, they started after having their initial meetings, they started by having a huge party in Colombo, where they brought together endless length of table and people contributed food. And that was a way to really start the initiative.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And food is always a way to welcome people in. And I'm just going to, since we have a few people in our audience, if there's any questions that they would like to ask of the midwifing team, just put them in the chat. And I know that what we've covered is passion, purpose, compassion, priorities. And I feel like we are actually exemplifying living the master code of care, as each of us is working with our own callings, looking after, caring for self and for others, obviously, also for our place. We've been talking about Nottingham and Manchester and all the examples that you brought from around the world, Marilyn. So we have really sort of embraced the whole planet in the conversation. And I just really appreciate the opportunity that Sue created by following her impulse to start with the Moments of Mass Mindfulness and bring her great deep care for the world into her local work. Thank you. So I wonder then, I haven't seen any questions from the chat or anybody has raised their hand. I know that Marilyn brought a video to share, and I think that Kara is able to play that video and show us a little further story about compassionate cities. And I think that might be a way for us to bring our discussion as a midwifing team to a nice close. And then after that, I will ask Sue to have a closing moment for us as well. Thank you, Kara.
We're excited to be celebrating what is arguably the greatest idea humanity has ever had.
I wish that you would help with the creation, launch, and propagation of a charter for compassion.
Inner cities are in turmoil. People are looking for a solution, and compassion is the solution.
La compasión puede ser un antídoto, pero sobre todo la compasión puede ser la respuesta a las problemáticas de migración, de pobreza, de vulnerabilidad que se están presentando en todos los países.
Learning between compassionate cities like San Antonio, Monterey and Las Vegas has been a key to delivering remarkable results. One initiative from a group of godmothers in Compassionate City Monterey is rebuilding lives, one roof at a time.
Municipio hacemos como un censo para ver las necesidades personales de cada casa.
Those images, there is a very compassionate heart.
If you're always in survival mode, we offer a place of safety and a place of respite where people can come, be safe, decompress, and then start moving towards their next steps.
Across town, a volunteer-driven medical clinic heals the uninsured, while a food bank feeds the hungry.
I used to be part of that vulnerable population that we serve. I went without health care. I was homeless for a long time. Compassion heals. Compassion empowers. Compassion changes lives.
The city has also struck an innovative partnership between police and pastors to reduce violent crime.
After a violent event, say a homicide or a shooting, we will call our faith-based partners. They will come out and respond as a kind of a conduit to us to really preach no retaliation, provide aid and comfort to the family.
Through the spread of Compassionate Cities initiatives, innovation blossoms and people flourish.
So it's a powerful way to unleash 5 things: inspiration, initiative, integration, innovation and impact.
Invertir en la compasión en este momento de la historia es invertir en la sanación del planeta.
The Charter for Compassion has a new wish for the next 10 years: to shine a light on compassionate cities whose measurable results inspire others around the world. You can help. Invest in compassion and cross-learning between communities.
If we aren't as individuals, as organizations, as cities, as communities, investing in that for our future generations, we are so missing the mark. This is the best stuff that's happening on the planet.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful way to sum up, I think, the story that we're trying to tell here, and that it is a fractal of somebody else's dream when Karen stepped out and called for a charter for compassion. And now look how far it's gone around the world in hundreds of cities and thousands of organizations and schools. And we're continuing the story and the work, and hopefully, and I trust the impact. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, midwifing team. And thank you, Sue, if you would just lead us in a moment to finish our session here together with another way of expressing care.
Oh, thank you. And it's with the greatest of gratitude for everyone here present, for the gifts that they've shared today. And following your calling is the greatest gift of all. Being on purpose, and certainly for many of the voices here, that's where we are. So it's a very beautiful time to be alive and to be able to meet each other. So should we, with that gratitude in our hearts, should we simply find comfort again and put down whatever's in front of us and bring ourselves into the here and now, with eyes closed or softened focus. Maybe a smile on the lips to raise the serotonin levels and the oxytocin, the cuddle hormones. And simply take a long, slow breath in. And slow breath out within the realms of comfort. With the attention on the heart space, the rise and fall of this beautiful energetic organ, which is so much more than a pump. The seat of intuition, of love, care, compassion, and laughter. Bringing in the lightness of being in communion. And in that space of ourselves into our own heart. Maybe even saying your own name, thank you for this moment. Thank you for this gathering of like-hearted others. And thank you for living in this time, in this beautiful world. Caring and sharing. And when we're ready, one more smile on the lips and a beautiful breath in, maybe a stretch if you feel like stretching a little. And then when you're ready, slowly opening your eyes and greeting each other. Thank you. Truly, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And I noticed that today's theme for World Unity Week is gratitude. So it's a perfect way to complete our session. And for those of you who would like to have connections with any of us, I've put all of our connected information in the chat, and that will go up also on the Trello board and Facebook. So thank you. Thank you. Deep gratitude. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you for hosting.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Peter, Sue, and thanks everyone in the audience. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.